Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, and I know they're catching up on coffee and dessert, but for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, welcome to our PMI Montgomery County Chapter Member Appreciation Night. Give yourselves a round of applause. And the 40 virtual attendees, welcome to you. Our chapter is embarking on its 20th year next year of being in existence. We all know the giant titan that's PMI WDC, which could cover a 100-mile radius, but the fact that our chapter, PMI Silver Spring, PMI Southern Maryland down in Pax River, and PMI Baltimore are allowed to better serve the members in a more intimate and direct way is a great privilege for us and one that we don't take for granted. So we're glad everyone's here. For those who couldn't make it, we look forward to seeing you at future events. Our election nominations to be a chapter board officer are open right now. That'll be communicated in upcoming newsletters as well. So we'll keep the nomination cycle for a few weeks before PMI Global sends out their e-ballot. What we're asking is for 5 to 6 hours a month. We need help with our programs to get great speakers like Mr. Pritchard and better speakers than our speaker that we had last month. It does give you the opportunity for free PDUs and ability to improve the chapter. I'm sure just in your table, somebody came up with a recommendation, or I wish they'd do this. Like, this is your opportunity to be a part of that. Since the pandemic, this type of philanthropy and like volunteer leadership isn't as exuberant. PMI WDC came out with their elections last week, and they had 3 positions that were either vote for this person or don't vote for this person, but there wasn't anybody else to vote for. So I think professional associations, at least across the country, but we're struggling with motivating people to take more leadership positions. So this is your call for consideration. Think about it. If somebody at your table or a colleague who's a chapter member or could be a chapter member for the low price of $20 would be a good leader and take our chapter into the future, we'd love to see them on the ballot. Okay, and speaking of PDUs, we're one of the few PMI chapters globally that post all our presentations on YouTube. The quality is good enough to get the information conveyed. So look at our chapter YouTube channel, and good background noise for the workday. And all the presentations should have the claim code in the video description. If they don't, let me know and I'll make sure that gets added. Thank you to everyone who brought food in the hallway. Manna Food Center right around the corner from Best Buy and Nordstrom Rack, and what was supposed to be the Amazon grocery store and is now probably going to be a giant grocery store space that nothing moves into. Sure appreciate that we invited Manna's executive director, Miss Jackie DiCarlo, to join us, but she had a prior conflict, but she sends her appreciation. For those who did bring food, you should have a raffle ticket. So as an appreciation, we have 2 books, one signed Mr. Musk's biography by world-renowned biography and historian, Mr. Walter Isaacson. It's not signed by Elon, it's signed by Walter Isaacson, but a great read. And Ticket number is 693-6645. Great. Then our next prize is a book that's not signed, but was one of my favorite books that I read last month. It's How to Expect the Unexpected by Mr. Kit Yates, The Science of Making Predictions and the Art of Knowing When Not to. We predicted that 155 people would at least be here out of our 180 that registered, and around 120 were. So I think I need to reread the book. And that ticket will be 693-6644. Well, I did shuffle the tickets. And speaking of the restaurant, serving 120 people isn't easy in any capacity. So let's give a round of applause for the management and the wait staff. So we will have our last meeting of calendar year 23, the first Wednesday of December. And that'll be Wednesday, December 6th. We will cut the price down for a holiday special price from our normal pricing of $35 down to $15. Same time slot, similar to the food drive. We'll have a holiday toy drive for Toys for Tots. We know we have some former Marines in the house, so Toys for Tots is a great charity near and dear to many hearts. And we're pleased to have one of the PMI Future 50 recipients for 2023, Miss Crystal Brady, who's doing great things with agency supporting cancer research and cancer prevention. So we've heard a lot about Discipline Agile. We have a lot of leadership partners that teach Discipline Agile, but they haven't been in the workforce directly to really see it come to fruition. So I think this will be a great presentation on, we hear all about new ways to do Agile, Discipline Agile, but this will actually be a benchmarking study on how it worked for her to get her to the point where PMI gave her this award. So she's excited to come speak to us and represent her oncology group. So we hope registration should be open by Friday. So we hope to see as many of you here. There'll be a Christmas tree somewhere in the room. So yeah, that's persuasive enough. Okay, Miss Nelson, great. So for those familiar with the Project Management for Change, the nonprofit, and the Project Management Day of Service, it started in 2015 by our former Chapter Vice President of Finance, Ms. Laura Bernard, and her colleagues, and it's still going strong. During the pandemic, they had to go virtual for a couple of years, but we have some exciting news about the in-person event for next year.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I thank you for giving this moment to talk about Project Management for Change. This year, we're going in person, and it will be at the University of Maryland campus, and we're expecting project managers to come and volunteer that day. It's the day of service that we expect for persons like you to give your time for that day. It's Saturday, February 17th in next year. And this is a day that we work with projects with nonprofits. And we want to understand that nonprofits sometimes do not understand the jargon of project managers, the isms that we talk. We are expecting that when project managers come and help with them in planning their projects, that you'll be able to speak to them in local terms so that they can understand. And so what we do at Project Management for Change is to teach you how to speak to these nonprofits. And this day, we are expecting that you will turn up and give your time. The benefit of this is that you get PDUs up to 7 that you self-report. The nonprofits do get some sensitization to project management. And at the end of the day, we see that these nonprofits benefit from the expertise that you project managers can give to them. And I believe that I've been doing this from 2017, and every year I feel good about what I give back to these nonprofits. And so we're looking forward for you all, as many of you as possible, to come and give your service for that day. Right now, we're also looking for a nonprofit engagement person, somebody who can talk with the nonprofit. So we're expecting that someone would step up, and if you see me tonight and would like to step in that role, we would ask if you could come and help us plan for the day of service on the 17th of February. If you have any questions, you can let me know. But even after this day of service, you can also, if you are so inclined, to give some time to these nonprofits in what we call a CVD, which is a continuous value delivery of your services. And so these project managers help the same companies that they've worked with for the day and assist them in completing the planning for the projects that they brought to the day of service. So I'm looking forward to a lot of you joining us on that day to help these nonprofits plan for their projects. Thank you.
Okay, we're one of the few PMI chapters that has a sister Toastmasters group accompanying it. I'm not sure if the Toastmasters leadership is here, but their next meeting is next Wednesday, November 8th via Zoom. And then they have an in-person meeting the third week of every month. So we can all be better public speakers, more confident speakers, more informed speakers. So if you find yourself with a little bit more time during the week, throughout the winter season, this would be a great opportunity to network, earn PDUs, and improve your public speaking. Our sister chapter events are have an action-packed month. Next Wednesday, PMI Silver Spring, Miss Janet Cook, friend of the chapter, will be presenting on trauma and how that can affect project teams when there's trauma within the organization or the office or the project. So that'll be a good virtual presentation. Next Thursday, November 9th, PMI WDC is having their annual membership meeting with dinner, drink ticket, and their featured speaker, Mr. Carl Pritchard, presenting on something separate from what he's presenting on today. He'll be presenting on Why Am I So Calm? We'll see if he's calm by the end of the presentation this evening. And then next Sunday, PMI Baltimore is doing a state of the chapter presentation at a winery in Baltimore County. Dr. Groves is a psychology professor and has a nice, neat, interactive way of presenting. We'll be presenting, and that's a affordable glass of wine, good plate of barbecue, a speaker, and some networking for $20 if you're a non-member of the Baltimore chapter. Our chapter education partners are doing great things. Lisa and David up in Delaware are continuing to do in-person and virtual offerings. Giuliani with project management experts, Mr. Pritchard himself with his consulting group. So if you are using use or lose leave before the holidays and want to spend some of the training education allowance that your companies may provide, this is a great opportunity to use it. Okay, now for the feature presentation of the evening, we're happy to welcome Mr. Carl Pritchard, who will be presenting on this stage, different stages in appearance, but the same chapter stage and the same chapter flag for the 12th time in our 19-year history. So he's our most tenured speaker that we've had. I think Lee Lampert's behind him at 10. So if Mr. Lampert ever watches this recording, accept the challenge. Back in 2019, when the world was a little bit different, PMI Global at their annual awards, Global Campus, Global Summit, awarded Mr. Pritchard the Eric Jennett Person of the Year Award. That's given from PMI to 3 recipients a year for outstanding contributions to the project management profession over time. And we've known him as Mr. Risk, and he's one of the most well-respected risk management professionals in the entire world. And looked at, there's been versions of the PMBOK that he's helped with. You recently drafted a PMI-RMP certification study guide that he's going to speak to, and we'll wrap off at our December meeting. So that's a plug to come back next month. So Mr. Pritchard, we're happy to have you here, and thank you. Yeah.
Welcome home. What's your story? Now think about that. You all have a story. It's the one your significant other always looks at you and rolls their eyes because they've heard it one time too many. It's that story. It's the one that when somebody tries to define who you are, it's like, oh, well, you know, when I was growing up, and you start on that roll. What's your story? We are a culture. We are a world of stories. Every single one of you has a story. Question is, what is it? And does anybody care? No, that's really a challenge. It is getting people to care, because sometimes you'll start in on a story and you'll be on a roll. And you'll be thinking, wow, I love sharing this story. And then you notice that they're not paying full attention. They are not wrapped in the moment. How can this be? How can they not share just the compelling nature of that story? Well, let me suggest to you, it's about you. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times we're not very effective at sharing our stories. And in meetings, in conversations, in sales pitches, all those situations, you sell so much better when you're selling a story, when you're able to build a story around it. And the question is, what's your story? Let me take this a step first. What's the headline for your story? Now think about that. Headline. What's the just 4 to 8 word absolute max, 4 to 8 word headline that actually captures what, if somebody was asking you, what's your story? You'd say, and you'd insert your story there. Now for me, my headline is man beats cancer, sorta. That would be my headline. The idea of a good headline is that it makes people go, I'm sorry, what? Wow, I want to know more. If you've got that down, if you've got it so that they actually want more out of your story, you win. You do. In that moment, you win. Now, the question is, what's your story? I want you to look to your left and look to your right. I'll wait. Do you know what? He or she has a very compelling story. They really do. But the question is, what's the headline to that story? People don't get the whole idea of headlines. 3 or 4 words is an ideal. 8 words is an absolute max. So what's your headline? And I want you to just take about 10, 15 seconds and just kind of concoct in your head for your favorite story, what's the headline? Why don't you just take a moment and do that? And if you want to write it down, that's not a bad idea. Because what I'm going to ask you to do is to share that headline with your neighbor. I want you to just pick a neighbor. That's right. Oh, and some of you will go, I have 2 neighbors. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine. But I want you to pick a neighbor, and I'd like you to just share the headline. Now, some people feel compelled to then go on and tell the rest of the story. No, we're talking, nobody here should be saying more than 8 words after I send you on your mission here. But all I'm looking for is, what's the headline to your story? What's the headline to your story? So what I'd like you to do is look around your table, pick that one person, or if necessary, 2, because you've got an odd number of people at your table. But I want you to turn to them and I'd like you to just share your headline. Now, given the number of people in the room, the headlines, this should take you about 20 seconds. So I'll give you a full half minute because I'm just that crazy. So you've got 30 seconds to share. On your mark, get set, go. Okay, now the question for you is not your headline. Not if you're, oh, I came up with, I'm a genius. Yeah, no, not your headline, but your neighbor's headline. Did any of you hear a headline that made you go, wow, I wish I had time to find out more? Who heard that from your neighbor? Raise your hand if you did. Great. Who, do you mind sharing what some of those headlines you heard were? What was the one you heard? Well, yeah, you.
Seeing it all through the end.
Seeing it all through the end. An interesting headline. Makes you wonder, is it over? That's a good question. And you said you liked hers. What was her headline? She's all in your business. Well, okay. One more. What's one more from back over there somewhere? Who liked your neighbors? Graylin, what'd you come up with? I worked in Nigeria and loved it. Wow. Is he a prince? Oh, princess. Sorry. The interesting thing is, notice what that does. It leaves people wanting. What do they want? They want to communicate with you. They want to share information. They want to gather information from you. And unfortunately, many people will open that door and say, oh, this is an invitation for me just to keep gabbing. No, there's a key to effective communications. Shut up. No, it's true. It's very true. One of the great keys to effective communications is to learn that you want to leave them wanting. You want to leave them optimistic and hope. By the way, in case you're wondering what makes me the right guy to talk about this, aside from the fact that I have an infinite supply of stories, I used to be a member of, I'm sorry about this, the media. Yeah, sorry. I was the news director at WASH Radio in Washington. Oh, yeah. Wow. Hey, this guy had a real gig. Yeah. And not only that, when I was running the news department at Wash, there was an interesting morning when I was on air with the DJs, and I was just yucking it up with them leading into the newscast. We were having a great time. And the boss, my boss, called me into his office afterwards. And he said, Carl, you were on fire today. You were rolling. I said, thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. And he said, yeah, just one thing. And I said, sure. And he said, next time, cut it off at about half that amount of time. And I said, you just said I was on fire. And he said, yeah. And it went too long. Leave them wanting. And those words from Tom Durney have stuck with me the rest of my career. Leave them wanting. If you go into something and you go ahead and give it all up, you're not communicating effectively. In fact, you're leaving people frustrated because they feel like, wow, I had hoped there would be more, and now I found out there's not. They do. They discover the real shadow that's in there. Now, so what's your favorite story? Did anybody share something they did that was amazing? Well, she loved working in Nigeria. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty cool. Anybody share something about their children? Anybody? Nobody? Oh, about your grandchildren. Okay, that counts. Yeah. What did they do that was amazing?
I named different things about me.
Oh,
Like grandmother,
oh, okay.
coach.
Just talking about the extended family and the grandkids. And any of you who are grandparents, you know that once you start, you simply can't stop. Now, any of these, not only fodder for just personal conversation, but they're also fodder for your next presentation, your next sales pitch, your next meeting with people, if you control yourself. If you don't feel compelled to reveal everything. For some reason, we all do. So today, you're going to sign off here with at least one new way to construct your message. We're going to find out why Johannes Gutenberg changed our lives, and you're going to clarify how adjectives are opportunistic. They're wonderful opportunities to stir up a conversation and to get things going when you think you're kind of stuck. Oh, and why you need to understand what's wrong with this bullet. Because it's all about you. That's right. When you tell somebody, here's what you are thinking, just so you know, you failed. That's a bad thing to do when you're sharing a story, is tell somebody, here's what you're experiencing right now. And somebody's sitting there going, I'm not experiencing any of that. In fact, I'm just bored to tears. And we need to be the ones who avoid that. The word you is a dangerous word when it comes to any storytelling that might be under consideration. How did we get here? Well, thank you, Johannes Gutenberg. Journalism. I was a J school student at the Ohio State University. Go Bucks, OH. Oh, thank you. Yeah, somebody IO'd me. Yeah. But journalism, in the good old days, and there were good old days, it was the inverted pyramid style of journalism. What that means is, as soon as you start writing or sharing a story, you start with the big part, the important stuff, and then you give more details as necessary. The reason we did that was because of Johannes Gutenberg and the joy of movable type. Yeah, when they actually started doing newspapers, you used to write in column inches. Now, column inches, pretty simple concept. You would simply write one column wide and just start writing, and just write all the way down until your story was done. But it had to be done inverted pyramid. And the reason was because of something, and it's a term that actually comes out of the early 1900s. They had to take your little strip of copy and lay it down onto a board and paste it in place. And sometimes it wouldn't fit. They took a little pair of scissors, they back up, and they go, okay, where's that paragraph end? There. And they would cut. Hence the term, cut and paste. Yeah, that's not something, ooh, Control C. Yeah, no. That's not what that's about. It's actually about movable type and being able to shut off a story. Shutting off a story is sometimes hard to do. My old boss said, best boss I ever had, wonderful guy, called me into his office, and I had been told we needed to get another $200,000 to support the AT&T contract. And I was the one who had to drop this little bombshell on Ed. And I went into his office. And Ed looked at me and he said, so what do you need? And I said, well, I've got a PowerPoint. And I've got about a 20-minute presentation to explain to you what we really need. And he said, Carl, I don't have time for this. What do you need? I said, well, I just need 20 minutes of your time to review these. And he said, no, what do you need? I said, okay, I need $200,000 to finish out the AT&T contract. Do you really need it? Yeah. Okay. I said, okay, what? And he said, okay, you got it. And I said, wow, you mean you're okay with that? And he said, if I have to be, I have to be. Well, thanks, Ed. I said, not only that, I just gave you 15 minutes of your life back. Oh, he wanted something that actually drove us away from that whole idea. He wanted just the bottom line. He wanted just that lead, that big part at the beginning. That's what he wanted. He just wanted to know, where is this going? Went quick to the backbone. He wanted to ensure that he was getting exactly what he needed, nothing more, nothing less, and getting it as quickly and effectively as possible. You've been in meetings, and some people walk up in a meeting and they have their moment in the sun. And they'll stand up there and they'll say, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I just want to share with you before we get started a little story. And you're like, no stories. This is a meeting. Let's get this over with. And they continue. And by the time they're done, you are praying for the sweet embrace of the grave. The reality is, what do people want in a meeting? They want it to end. No, seriously, we attend enough meetings, collectively speaking. We just want them to be over. And sadly, people don't understand that when they're sharing information, when they're communicating, your job is a very simple one. Get in, get out, get the information you need to get across, and get done. Oh, done. They launched me at about 6 minutes before 8 o'clock. That was, I actually have a watch on. And they launched me at about 6 minutes before 8. So I promise you, by 10 till 9, I'm done. By 10 till 9, I'll be done. Done. Questions, answers, all that stuff, done. And I saw a couple of you go, you were relieved, and genuinely so. You have a right to be relieved. Why? Because now you know the limitations of our communication. You want to enhance communications? You prepare for cut and paste. You do what's called the bottom line up front, because people have the attention span of an ant. Yeah, they genuinely do. Don't expect people to expand their attention span just because, well, gee, you look good in a suit. No, nobody looks that good. The reality is, our job is to actually get the message across and get out. The fact that I said 10 till 9. Some of you are like, sweet. Okay, he's not going to run up to 9 o'clock. So if I get on the 270, and you're actually plotting out the trip home, the point of any effective communication is to give people the bottom line up front. That's a military term, by the way. I didn't make that up. Bluff. Bottom line up front. Don't dance around it. Don't be coy. Don't be cute. You just want to tell people, here's where you're going. Here's what you're going to walk away with. One of the most evil things ever created is TikTok and Facebook Reels. And the reason they're evil is because they're somehow compelling. You'll be watching a reel and it'll even say it at the beginning, wait till the end. There's never a payoff. No, you never actually get to see them land the fish. You never get to see the ball roll into the cup. No, it's this long drawn out, and it's over. And then it cycles through again. Shoot them. That is so horrible. It's so horrific, and it's everything bad about communications. I would be thrilled to watch a hole-in-one dropping into the cup a dozen times if they started with that, instead of dragging you through the person walking up to the green, padding around for a little while. No, I don't want any of that. I want to see ball, cup. That's all I want to see. Somebody's going to show me their hole-in-one. That's what I'm expecting. And some of you at 10 till are going to do me the ultimate courtesy. They're going to go, wow, Thanks a lot. That was a great presentation. And you know what? I really wish I could find out more. Well, every meeting should end that way. We should let people know from the outset. The end of the meeting is not the end of the meeting. Oh, we're done. You get to go home. You're stuffed with cannoli. You're good. But it's not the end. This is why anytime you're terminating a communication event, I don't care what it is, tell people how to carry the event forward. That's my cell phone number. Feel free. Seriously, call me. I got plenty of free time on my hands. And so the answer is, should we actually tell people this? Here's how you can get a hold of me. Here's how we can continue this conversation. And if they do follow up, and a number of you have via email over the years, some of you more so than others. But what's intriguing is, if we give them that safety net, it builds a tighter bond out of the communication. And tell people what they're getting when you're done. People remember stories. People remember stories. That's me. And this is my lovely wife, Nancy, who is a goddess to be worshipped. Yeah, that's my wife, Nancy. And we're hanging out. And as you can see, we're leaning on a dry stack stone wall. That wall is 150 feet long, 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall. Took me 3 years to build it. Oh, wow, Carl, why'd you build a wall? Actually, that wasn't my mission. My project objective was grow grass. No, I live on a mountaintop. I do. I live in Western Maryland, far Western Maryland, and I live on a mountaintop. And I found out something interesting after we bought the house. Mountains are made of rock. And my neighbor has a lawn like a golf course. And I looked at him, I said, Charlie, how did you do that? And he goes, well, first thing you got to do is get rid of all the rocks. I said, I can do that. And that was my plan. Now, notice that's all you need to know. You don't need to know the details of how you build dry stack stone walls. If you've been to Gettysburg, you've seen them. Yeah. But all you have to do is just kind of give them the lay of the land, and people will take it from there. Because some of you are thinking, let's see, 150 feet long, 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall. That's a lot of rocks. Yeah, actually, it works out, according to the rock calculators online, someplace between 90 and 100 ton of rock. Crazy. Keep it real. Keep it short. Keep it in a context. When I mentioned Gettysburg, a lot of you clicked. A lot of you went, oh, yeah, I've seen those walls. Yeah, sure. I know exactly what he's talking about. Suddenly, we're relatable. People remember stories. It's amazing how people will remember a story. They'll remember a story from years ago, but they can't remember your name to save their soul. But they'll remember the stories you share. And it gives you a chance to go back, expand on ideas, to go back and build on what you've dealt with in the past. Oh, what makes a great story? You see this light bar? So common on police vehicles across the country. That light bar, some of you saw that and had one of the most common physical reactions to just having the image in front of you. Your heart rate increased. Your blood pressure went up. There's nothing. Those were involuntary reactions. You couldn't help yourself. But as soon as you saw it, you're like, oh, crap. I hate that. Now, you knew your blood pressure would go up. You knew your heart rate would increase. Now, think about this. Driving home tonight. You see that in the rearview mirror. I shouldn't have had the scotch. I shouldn't have had the scotch. I shouldn't have had the scotch. Yeah. But you see that in your rearview mirror. That's a very telling moment. And it's relatable. Talk about being called into the boss's office and compare it to being pulled over. Everybody knows the experience. And if you don't, you're a weird driver. but we've almost all been there at some point or another. And suddenly it's relatable and it ties in to whatever it is you're talking about. Oh, it's talking about being called into the boss's office and comparing it to being pulled over. There's a point. Nothing worse than stories without a point. My father, God rest his soul. Dad called me up one day. He was so excited. Called me up and he said, "Hey, guess what? I signed up for a class at Youngstown State." And I said, "Oh, really, Dad? That's great. What are you taking?" "Storytelling." I said, "Great. That's wonderful." And every time I went home, he'd go, "I learned something new in class today. Let me get out my notebook." And then he would start, and I swear I have no idea what they were teaching them in that class. I really don't, because he'd go on for like 10 minutes and I'd be like, "Please let it end." And it didn't. And that was kind of painful. There needs to be a point whenever you're sharing a story. And if you're doubting that anybody believes you're getting to the point, there's a problem. And the problem is you need to tell them this actually gets to a point. It gets somewhere. Okay, here's a little historical pop quiz. A pop quiz. These are all years hanging up here. 1666, 1969, 1957, 1991, 2001, and 2012. Those are all years. And I want you to pick one of them and think to yourself, don't say it out loud yet. What's the big event related to that year? So take a moment, take a look, pick your year. You only have to pick one. You don't have to know them all. Okay, everybody has a year. Great. Who picked 1666? Who picked 16? Oh, come on. You did? Oh, you did? Great, Brad. So here's the big question. I'm sorry? The plague. The plague and the Great Fire of London. Oh, wow. Yeah. A little British history for y'all. Yeah. The plague, the Great Fire. Oh, I had no idea. 1666, huh? Yes. Wow. I can be more erudite in my next discussion about Britain. I'm going to look so good. Yes, you are. 1969. Anybody pick that one? Oh, a lot of you did. What happened in 69 in your universe? The moon landing. Neil Armstrong. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And if you were alive at that time, you remember exactly where you were, what you were doing. You remember everything about that moment. So they're like, "Carl, my parents weren't even alive at that time." That's the real sad part, is that's ancient history to a lot of people these days. Oh, 1957. Anybody pick that one? Yeah. Sputnik. October 4th, 1957, the Russians, the Soviets, launched Sputnik. More importantly, 2 days later, I was born. But what's notable about that is when you can tie whatever you're talking about to moments in history, to moments in time. Let me jump down to the bottom here. 2012. Okay, that wasn't exactly where I was shooting. Anything else going on in 2012? The end of time. The Mayan calendar. It tapped out in 2012. Oh, wow. Yeah, and look, here we are, 2023. We're in limbo. Yeah, we're someplace completely different. Every one of these is a factoid. Factoids make up stories. The little snippets, the little bits, whether it's being able to just mentally see that cop in your rearview mirror, whether it's a matter of, oh yeah, I remember 1991. What was going on in 91? The Iraq invasion? Okay. I'm sorry, the first Gulf War. Okay. And 2001, I'll bet a lot of you picked that one. 9/11, yeah. an easy one to remember, and every single one of you. Now, here's where this can slip you up and cause you problems when you're trying to share information. You bring up something like 9/11. This is a very dangerous moment for me up here. I got to tell you, because everybody right now is thinking, oh, I remember where I was. I was driving down, and it's like, no, 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 don't go there. Once you start that conversation, it takes a long time to shut it back down. Much safer to go back to the Great Fire of London. No, because most people don't remember it. We're pretty safe there. Or Sputnik, or even the man on the moon. Those kinds of things make a little bit of difference, but they also give us a flavor for history and give us a chance to actually embed our stories in historical events. It's a matter of picking the right story. Oh, that woman right there on the left of the top picture, that is, yet again, my lovely wife, Nancy, a goddess to be worshipped. And when it comes to Nan, this actually was a big event for her and her sister. The two of them went in 2012 on the Titanic Centenary cruise on the MS Balmoral out of Southampton, England. They were actually there on the 100th anniversary of the Titanic sinking on the boat that tossed the wreaths into the ocean and held the formal ceremony on the BBC. My wife was there. How cool. Colonel, what was your wife doing there? Well, that's a good question. Nancy's grandmother, family lore has it, was supposed to come over on the Titanic. She was Scottish. Unfortunately, she took ill the day before Titanic sailed, and she missed the boat. Bummer. Wow. Scary stuff. It's one of those things that's over 110 years ago. Let it go. No, it's family lore, and it's one of those things that makes any story a little more compelling when you can tie it into history. Oh, down at the bottom, some of you have seen this before. That's me. My hair was dark. I was younger. Yeah. Oh, and who am I standing next to? That's Pat Sajak. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 1986. I was a contestant on Wheel of Fortune. How strange is that? Now, without me invoking it, without me suggesting to you what the right answer is, I'm curious. What's the first question that pops into your head? Oh, well, let me give you the full story. I crushed Kay and Larry 4 rounds straight. They barely got to spin the wheel. I just answer, 4 rounds right in a row. Get out of my way. And then we went to the bonus round. I did not win the 1986 Buick Skylark, valued at the time at $16,000. I did not get the Buick. Now, what question pops into your head? Oh, what did I get? I got $10,000 in prizes, but I did not get the Buick. I blew the bonus round. Oh, there you go. What was the puzzle? Yeah, I always get that. I've heard that before, so fine. Here, you can play. Yeah. Now, back then, they didn't give you half the alphabet like they do now. You had to ask for it. STRNL and the ever-present E. So that's what I asked for. It's a phrase. That's what I got. 15 seconds is an eternity when you don't know the answer. And you're sitting there and your brain is frozen solid. And you're looking at it going, I just crushed Kay and Larry 4 rounds straight. How can I not get this puzzle? And the buzzer goes off. Now, only if you have never heard this story before can you yell out the answer. Nobody? Oh, I hate you. Yeah. If you didn't hear, it's caffeine free. Oh, that's okay. I got the piano. I got the Keelim rug. I got the silver tea service. Yeah. This is back when you bought prizes, back in the good old. It's relatable. It's one of those magic moments. If you want to talk about tension, if you want to talk about just freaking out, there you go. That's what it's like. Quick quiz question. How much was the Buick worth? Oh, thank you. Yeah, 16,000. What cruise was Nancy on? The Balmoral, the Titanic Memorial Cruise. Yeah. What happens when you see police flashers in your rearview mirror? Your blood pressure increases and your heart rate increases. Wow. And what's it called when you do the bottom line up front? Bluff. Look at all this stuff that is now lodged in your head. I didn't say there will be a short quiz next period. I didn't warn you of that. I didn't give you any idea that that was coming. And yet you had uniformly no problem coming up with the answers to these questions, even though they may have seemed like minutia in the whole of our conversation. You can embed this stuff in everything that you do. You have that capability. You really do. Part of it is not just abandoning yourself to simple, common foibles. One is names. People have names. They really do. We'll tell a story and say, well, I was dealing with a customer the other day. You weren't dealing with a customer. Oh, no, you're right. I was dealing with an elderly woman. No, you weren't. You weren't dealing with an elderly woman. You were dealing with my gum Betty, Grandma Betty. Yeah, Grandma Betty was one of those women who in the 1950s and 60s wore a big unflattering house dress. She had hose that were knee highs, but they always rolled down to her ankles. So it looked like she was wearing little brown donuts around her ankles. Now, that will stick with you a lot longer than just saying an elderly woman. Suddenly you've got my Aunt Betty actually embedded in your head. Kind of a scary thing. Oh, typical end user, currently pulling her hair out. Marta. Now, you may not know anyone named Marta. That's okay. The point being is you give her a name, even if it's not her real name. But you give her a name, and suddenly it becomes much more real, becomes much more authentic. A small town. I grew up in a small town. No, I'm not about to break into song, but I did. I grew up in a map dot in Columbiana, Ohio. It's one of those little transparent dots on the map that you could never find. That's my hometown. Although we now have a landmark just to the, actually one of our high school rivals was only 4 miles away. East Palestine, Ohio. Oh, I've heard of them. Didn't they have a train? Yeah, that thing. Paint. It's not paint. It's Sherwin-Williams semi-gloss latex emerald. The really good $60 a gallon stuff. Has anybody here ever bought that? You bought the really, really expensive paint? Yes? To those who have, is it not a different experience? It's a religion. Yes, I'm with you. Because no, the first time you do it, so I can't believe I spent this much on paint. Oh, and the first stroke on the wall, your life is changed. My dog, my way too nervous chocolate labradoodle, Mocha. Yeah. Takes on a whole different tone and tenor when you flesh it out just with a few adjectives. Adjectives are opportunistic. They are great opportunities to actually share. You want to draw somebody in, give it flavor. What gives it flavor? A good, solidly placed adjective. Theater of the mind. I don't know if any of you heard the announcement. They were making it out in the hall, and there was a lot of noise going on in here. But just moments ago, for those of you who don't know, this is the week the circus is here in Montgomery County. And if you didn't know that, one of the elephants has escaped and was actually out in the parking lot stomping on cars. It was just out there, just looked like it was having a heck of a time, but it was out there just boom, boom, just taking down the cars. Now, you can relax. There's no elephant. There's nothing crushing the hood of your car. And yet, That's what theater of the mind is all about. Many of you spend a significant portion of your life on Zoom, or worse still, on a phone call. You're on the phone call, and you want to let people know that something is big. It's a very big deal. Invoke the elephant. Go ahead, bring it into the room. Say, oh, hang on, hold on. Something's squeezing. Oh my gosh, it's an elephant. And it's now the elephant in the room. It's here with the other elephant that was already in this room. The metaphors you can draw, the ways you can exercise them when you're telling your stories. It's amazing how theater of the mind is one of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal. We have it all the time. I can't believe it. Brad Pitt just walked through the door. Yeah. And people are like, really? Really? Oh, I wish I was there. I've always wanted to see Brad Pitt. You don't have to confess that he's not there. You can say, wow, he's even more buff in person than he was in Troy. But it's noteworthy because what it does is it opens doors. If you want to get people to flex their minds about whatever it is you're talking about, go ahead and run a little theater of the mind on them. Let them know, here's how the world could be looking right now. The tigers are not far behind the elephant. But words. I love words. You know, I have all the weirdest hobbies on earth, and this is one of them. I collect copies of Bartlett's Familiar Quotations. I do. I'm only missing the first and third editions. I have all the rest of them. You might be like, wow, Carl, that is a really boring hobby. No, it's not. It's fascinating to see what was considered familiar quotations back in the 1800s. Today, 1968, there were count them, three Martin Luther King quotes. 1968, there were only 3 Martin Luther King quotes in Bartlett's. Now, the guy gets a page and a half all to himself. It's noteworthy because cultures change, language changes, the use of the language changes. And we should know. We should know what the words are, where they came from. Words like project. Where did project come from? Came from the Latin, progere. Progere, to impel forward. We're not project managers. We're impel forward managers. Yeah, we're driving things toward a goal. We're going to get someplace. We're not going backwards. We're going forwards. Yep. Consultant. Consult, the root, consulere, to provide sage counsel. Okay, that's safe. Computer. You got to love this. Computer. 1641 was the first use of the word computer. It was not a Dell. 1641 was the first time the word computer was actually used. Came from com, which was together, and putare, to count. Count together. Computare. Hence, computer. Wow. That is totally useless knowledge, Carl. Yeah, it is, but it is kind of compelling, isn't it? People are already thinking, oh, say 400 years ahead. They were way ahead of the curve. 2 phrases out of Brewer's Dictionary of Phrase and Fable, which is, by the way, if you ever buy that book, I want to warn you, it's an addictive read. You start reading Brewer's and it's just phrase, 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 but you start reading it and you're just a drooling idiot by the time you're done because it's just so compelling. 2 of my favorites out of there, Buying a Pig in a Poke, Letting the Cat Out of the Bag. I never knew those 2 were related. I really didn't. Buying a Pig in a Poke comes out of the Middle Ages, when you used to buy pigs in burlap sacks. You'd buy a pig in a burlap sack, and you'd walk up, and a vendor who might be unscrupulous, a vendor is standing there and it says, oh, here, would you like to buy a pig? Well, yeah, can I look at it? No, this pig's crazy. This pig's just plain nuts. If I open this bag, it's going to run. and you're still going to have to pay me for it. And so you go ahead and buy it. Oh, you bought a pig in a poke. That's what the burlap sack was called. You bought a pig in a poke, not knowing what was really inside. That's where the origin of that phrase comes from. But then you, being a project manager, of course, wanting all knowledge, you'd actually open the poke. And what would happen? It wasn't a pig. It was a local feral cat that the guy had just grabbed, stuffed into a poke, and was trying to make a quick buck. Oh. So you had a pig in a poke, but you let the cat out of the bag. Oh, who knew? Being able to reveal those kinds of little bizarre tidbits goes a long, long way toward creating more compelling stories and things people want to follow about you. They want to know. That's my mom when she was young. God rest her soul. You know, there's something about you that's special. And we all have one thing in common. I guarantee you. Every single one of us, at some point in our lives, had a mom. True? Anybody here who never had a mother? Okay. Freak of science, if you actually raise your hand. You had a mom. And something your mom told you all the time. You're special. She did. She told you all the time how special you were. And you know, mom was right. Because each one of you, when I ask you at the outset of all this, I ask you, what's your story? You had a story. You had something you could share. You have experiences that other people couldn't fathom. And it's one of those things when you tell people even just that snippet, wow, I want to know more. By the way, for those of you who are wondering, I do have stage 4 cancer. That's from the beginning of all this. You remember that? Yeah. About two and a half years ago, I was diagnosed and told I had 2 years to live. They're wrong. Here's the kicker. I saw my oncologist last week. And I said, so, how's it going? He said, going great. I said, for you, maybe. And he said, no, for you. I said, what? He said, I'm looking at all your numbers. You're going to live to be a very old man. And I said, oh, great. And he said, now you're still going to have cancer the whole time. And I'm like, I don't care. I really genuinely don't care. And he said, no, but you probably only got 15 years left. I'm like, yeah, well, I'll probably get whacked by a bus before that. So I feel pretty secure in that knowledge. When we're sharing a story, one other thing we've got to be careful of is don't leave them hanging. If there's an important end to this, particularly if it's a positive end to it, we need to be the ones willing to share that tidbit. We need to make sure we don't just leave it hanging. If somebody's accomplished something, you don't just say, hey, everybody give it up for Roxanne. She's an amazing project manager. She is the gifted and talented program. Give it up for Roxanne. And the fans go wild. Yeah. Well, excuse me, the operative question, what did she do? We should be loaded with that information. We should have the rest of the story. We should have the end to the story. We should be the ones willing to actively share all that we know and give it away freely. And if you do that and you do it in a time-effective manner, now notice the entire time spent talking about what has been a major feature of my life for over 2 years, about 30 seconds, maybe 45 tops. That's all it deserves. Very few things require a 2 or a 3 or even a 4-minute story. And if you catch yourself, just remember that fundamental rule of communication. Shut up. Yeah, it's time. Now, it is almost my time. I've got about 7 minutes left. Eight. Yeah. So before I go to my last slide, I do want to ask you, some of you are like, last slide, yay! Yeah. Before I go to my last slide, I want to give you the opportunity. Do you have any questions about anything we've covered here this evening? Or anything that you think, Oh, you know, Carl, you missed this story. Yes, sir.
I think all of us have like what our memoir is in our head, but the biggest thing that serves us from ever writing it is who's going to read it. With you dealing on and off with mortality recently, think about a memoir.
Oh, he's asking, did I actually think about writing my story? Any of you follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook? Okay, to those who do, you already know I beat you to the punch, man. Yeah, I've written about, 62,000 words about just the whole ordeal of going from, yeah, you've got 2 years left to, yes, you can go back to work.
Blog, yeah, but an actual like memoir.
Yeah, well, all you have to do is take the end off each blog, paste them all together, and pretty much we're there. Yeah, that's kind of my plan. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I actually think that's a profound question. If somebody else is just droning on and on and on, so look at them and say, you know what? That is some really compelling stuff. And before you go any further, I'll tell you what I'd like to do is, because I don't want anybody to feel antsy like they're not going to be able to hang out for the full story. So can we put this on our next meeting agenda? Can we actually give it its own item? And that will give everybody time to be kind of braced for all the data you're going to share with us. And everybody's walking out going, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they're going to be real happy that you were able to find a way to shut them down. Yeah, you don't want to let them keep going because, quite frankly, that's just bad meeting management. And we don't do that. Any others? Going twice. Oh, cheap trick, by the way. If you're on Zoom or on anything where you've got your camera on and you're trying to let people know, okay, does anybody else have a suggestion or a question? Give them the hand flash, counting down from 5. When you get to 1, just keep going. That way you're not sitting there listening to the uncomfortable silence and crickets. You're actually enjoying the moment and knowing it's over. I get to walk away in 3, 2, 1. And you're off the hook. My favorite mom story is just this simple. When I'd get depressed in high school, when I was just an angst-ridden teen, Mom would always come into my bedroom and she'd go, honey, you never know that tomorrow won't be the best day of your entire life. Every single day, she reminds me of that. And you know what? The same applies to you. You just don't know. Tomorrow may be your chance to shine, and you should take full advantage thereof. That said, that's my email address. That's my cell phone number. If you contact me, I will always get back to you within 24 hours. Carl, I've contacted you multiple times and you never got back to me. I'm in your spam folder. I always get back to people within 24 hours. And if you're on Gmail, I'll be getting back to you from a different address because Gmail hates carlpritchard.com. I don't know why. But that's how you can reach me. That's how we can carry this conversation forward. And with that, oh, wow, I've got 3 minutes left, but I'm not going to use them. I'll give them back to you. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay, want to get people on the road as soon as possible. Thank you for coming. Okay, our chapter president gives a thumbs up. So just a reminder that the first Wednesday of the month of December, December 6th, we'll be back here with another great presentation. Just a question in the room. Does anyone work for DARPA or ARPA or have any relations there? Okay. One? Okay. One of our chapter members is looking for a little bit more information, so I'll get with you right after this. Okay, safe travels home. There could be a World Series champion tonight, even though less than 6 million Americans are actually watching the World Series anymore. So, another round of applause for Mr. Pritchard, our wait staff, and all of you as members. Thank you for your membership.